Have you ever had that feeling that there's more to perception than just what our five senses tell us? More than just seeing, hearing, or touching? Well, today we're going to crack open a classic text on mysticism to explore this really fascinating idea of profound inner experiences, understandings that are said to just arrive in a purely spiritual way. Let's see what that's all about.
So this is really the big question we're diving into. I mean, can the soul actually perceive things on its own, without any help from the body's senses? Forget about your eyes and ears for a second. The author of this text is putting forward a pretty radical idea, that the soul has its own unique ways of understanding reality directly, with no physical stuff involved. So how in the world would that even work?
All right, so let's get into it. We're about to explore the framework a 16th century mystic came up with to map out these phenomena. He had a specific name for them: intellectual apprehensions. It's basically a term for knowledge that completely bypasses the physical senses and gets delivered straight to the soul.
Okay, so here's the crucial thing to get your head around. What these are not. They aren't memories you're digging up, they're not daydreams, and they are definitely not something your imagination is cooking up. According to the text, these are understandings the soul just receives, passively. It doesn't create them, it doesn't work for them, they are simply given to the intellect.
Now, to make this whole thing a little less, abstract, the author breaks these experiences down into 4 distinct categories. And he uses this really powerful analogy to help us get it, mapping each one of these spiritual events to a physical sense we all understand. Let's take a look at how he built this framework. Now this is where it gets really cool. Look how this table connects the intangible to something we can all relate to. A spiritual vision is when the intellect sees or grasps an object, but without using any eyes. A revelation is kind of like hearing brand new information for the very first time. A locution is even more specific. It's like hearing a distinct word or message. And spiritual feeling? That's described as this kind of spiritual fragrance or delight, almost like a spiritual version of smell or taste. Pretty neat, right? So, just to recap and nail this down, these experiences have a very specific profile. They are 100% non-physical. They're received directly by the intellect, no effort required. And, this is so important, they don't involve any images or forms that the imagination creates. The text is clear. They are purely supernatural communication. Okay, so this all sounds pretty incredible, doesn't it? I mean, a direct line to spiritual understanding. But, and this is a huge but, this is where our source text throws a major curveball. These profound gifts, the author warns us, are also a source of what he calls noble danger. Let's unpack that paradox. So first up, the noble part. The text argues that because these experiences are purely spiritual and because they don't involve the imagination, they're actually safer. They're less exposed to, let's say, negative influences or corruption compared to a big, vivid, imaginative vision. They're just more pure. But here it is. Here's the danger. Despite how pure they are, the author warns that if a person gets attached to these experiences, the intellect can get totally bogged down or encumbered and even highly deceived. The gift itself can become the single biggest obstacle on the spiritual journey.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly, doesn't it? It's the ultimate two-sided coin. On one side, the advantage, their pure spiritual nature, makes them less vulnerable to outside interference. But on the other side, that very same purity carries the risk of weighing down the intellect and deceiving the soul from the inside, becoming a major roadblock to the ultimate goal of true union.
So you might be thinking, great, these amazing gifts are also a trap. What am I supposed to do now? Well, the text doesn't just leave us hanging there. It offers some very clear and, honestly, pretty radical advice on how to handle this noble danger. It's a path the author calls the Night of Faith. Now, the Night of Faith, it's not about collecting more and more spiritual experiences. Nope, it's the exact opposite. It's about actively guiding the intellect past them, emptying it out, and bringing it into the state the text calls solitude and denudation. Basically, stripping away everything except faith itself. So here's the game plan, laid out in 4 clear steps. First, don't cling to these experiences. Free your intellect from them. Second, you have to actively guide your focus past them. Third, point your soul toward pure faith. And finally, number 4, always remember the goal isn't the experiences, it's seeking union with the divine. And that's it.
And this really brings us to the ultimate takeaway, the bottom line from the entire text. It's a stark, simple instruction. These extraordinary spiritual visions, these revelations and feelings, they are not the prize. They shouldn't be what we're aiming for or what we desire. They're like signposts on a journey, for sure, but they are not the destination.
So we're left with this really big, provocative thought to chew on. Our culture usually talks about growth, spiritual or otherwise, as something we acquire, right? Gaining knowledge, gaining skills, gaining experiences. But this text? It suggests a completely different way of looking at it. What if real growth, what if real union isn't about what you can get, but about what you're brave enough to let go of?